Hi, I'm Mark Nickerson, East Lyme's first selectman. Welcome to East Lyme's Issues and Answers, where every week or so we get together and talk about what's going on in our community, issues, things to talk about, and upcoming events. So I have a list of upcoming events before we get into today's guests. And we have a surprise guest today. A few things coming up on the town calendar. The Shred Day, where I think it's the Council on Aging puts that on with the Police Benevolent Association. Bring your shreddable material down to the East Lyme Community Center on September 12th. That's this Saturday, 9 o'clock to noon. Suicide Prevention and Awareness, a community forum, is happening at the Town Hall. It's the third annual, and that, I believe, is on the 23rd. I'm getting the 24th. I think you're right. The 24th from 7 to 9 at Town Hall. The Niantic Rotary Club, great organizations, having their annual golf tournament out at Great Neck on September 28th. If you'd like to play in that and support the community, because all that money goes right back into our community, visit a Rotarian. Come find one. I'm one. So you can certainly give me a call at Town Hall, and I'll get you pointed in the right direction. Children's Museum. We are so proud of our Children's Museum downtown. They're doing great things. They always have. They're having their annual gala on October 2nd. It's going to be at the Niantic Yacht Club. For tickets, see Holly Cheeseman. Go into the Children's Museum, or again, come see me at Town Hall, and I'll get you hooked up with tickets. The walk across southeastern Connecticut has become a big deal. The Terry Broder breast cancer fundraising event, where they walk from Saybrook all the way to Harkness Park. And if you're not walking in it, find someone who is and sponsor them. Donate some money to this. These are people who are very dedicated, walking over 20 miles in the name of friends, loved ones, sometimes themselves, or they too are victims. That happens on October 3rd. We're hopeful for good weather. And again, they'll be walking through Niantic. So we want to also go out on October 3rd and support them. So find someone who's walking, walk yourself, and certainly come on down to Niantic, find the points of where they're going to be, and come support them on October 3rd. Also on that same day, before you go down to Niantic to support the walkers, there'll be a drive-in flu shot clinic at the middle school, East Lyme Middle School, and I believe that's in the morning around 9 o'clock or so. The Ledgelight Health District's putting that on. Lots of things going on in East Lyme. We are just at the end of our summer. We're taping this on Tuesday after Labor Day, and summer is got a tight grip on us. It's 90 degrees outside the studios. It is the endless summer. This is probably the longest summer we've ever had. And after one of the toughest winters, we certainly deserved it. And a late spring, too. So lots of people going downtown, enjoying the music on Main Street, the new restaurants, all the ice cream places, and all our great town facilities. And part of the reason we have such a great downtown is a direct result of the leadership that we've had and enjoyed over the last dozen and a half years, really. Wayne Frazier was part of that. Beth Hogan had a part of that. And then Paul Formica came along, and he was also a guest. Well, he wasn't a guest. He was the host of this program before I took it over, and he is our guest today. I want to say guest speaker all the time. Paul is with me today, and it's a privilege and an honor to have you here, sir.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure to be here. It's nice to be back on the show, but I'm not quite used to sitting from this seat looking that way, but it's great to be back. Thank you.
Paul came into the studio and started making his way to the host seat. I went, you're across the table today. Thanks for coming in, and you've changed positions, obviously. Therefore, I'm in the first selectman seat. But you spent 20 years, 20 great years serving our town. How did you get started?
Yeah, 23.
23?
23.
My apologies.
23. No, that's okay. 23. We opened the business in 1983, and we started raising our family in the community, and you do all of the things that you do when you have children in the school system. Little league and band concerts, and so we started volunteering, and then as a result of the business, I got involved in the Chamber of Commerce. Worked my way up. I served 3 terms as president of the then East Lyme Chamber of Commerce. And we kind of helped merge that together with the Eastern Chamber when they started putting that together. But it was as president of the East Lyme Chamber of Commerce that issue came up that struck my interest. And again, being a small business person, the issue came up that the Planning Commission was thinking of increasing the side yard setbacks for commercial properties. And that's the setback is the area in which you must leave vacant adjacent to the property line, so as you don't overly encroach on your neighbors, especially if you're a commercial district and you have a residential use next door. And if you look at all the New England towns, many of them were small residential towns that commercial enterprises kind of worked their way in. So we were in the beginning stages of that back in I guess it was the late 80s, early 90s when East Lyme was really developing their commercial footprint. So they wanted to increase that to 25 feet from each line. Now, I had a piece of property where the fish market is. It was 113 feet across the front. So you have 25 feet in, 25 feet in, 25 feet in. It significantly reduces the amount of opportunity you have to provide a business.
Sure.
And you're paying taxes on all that.
Because you still need to have a footprint and parking lot and all that. There's all these needs that the commercial businesses and properties need to have. So all of a sudden, you can't grow your business. You can't have you can't expand. You can't grow. So I can see where that'd be a problem.
And so what happened was I went down to town hall and I said, hey, what gives with this? And they said, oh, don't worry about it. It'll never pass. So I said, okay, that's fine. And the next week, I opened the Niantic News, which came out every Thursday. They used to print across the street from the fish market. And there it was on the front page that it passed 6-0. And I went down and said, hey, I thought you said it wasn't going to pass. And he said, well, you knew it was out there. You could have done something. So I called up my friend Andy Pappas, who was running Constantine's at the time. His family owned that. And I said, hey, what do you think about running for zoning? And so we both ran for zoning. We got elected that year. I believe it was 1991. And we rewrote the regulation, got bipartisan support. And we did things like, to reduce the side, but we increased the opportunity for side yard protection with berms and fences and lights facing in and lighting plans and things that made sense. And that began 8 years that I served on the Zoning Commission, including the last 2 as chairman. Moved over to the Board of Finance, which I served 8 years on that, and then in 2007 was elected first selectman.
Yes, you were, and spent 7 years there, and wow. So, you described this little issue, which was a big deal to you, and it affected your business and many others. It wasn't necessarily just a selfish personal thing, but it affected the whole town and everybody that had a commercial business in the same situation. And you made a difference, and you made a change. And it's those little details. It's those little things about the size of the sign, and then we move forward. We fast forward to all these steep grants that the town got, one at a time. We started cleaning up the downtown, improving the sidewalks, putting the brick in, the lamp posts, the planters, the benches. And one little steep grant at a time, and were we up to 5 or 6 of them that we were approved for, now coming up Pennsylvania Ave, and then taking a turn over to Hope Street, where people they're showing up now. They're showing up downtown this summer going, wow, look how beautiful this is. But it was a dozen years in the making.
It was a long time, and you talk about the little effect of that regulation had on commercial. Well, I'd argue that it had effect on the entire town because the residential taxes are directly impacted by the success of the commercial industry in town. And, and there's a number of different, opportunities to collect taxes from different districts. Commercial, residential, beach, industrial. So by paving the way and understanding that everything kind of works together, I think it made a big difference. And then, the steep grant started, I think, back when the boardwalk came in, the hole in the wall area, which I was just talking to the deputy commissioner of DEP about, stormwater management and things that they're trying to do and on their properties. And I said, geez, you want to come down the hole in the wall and look what happened at hole in the wall was Billy Shear, the town engineer at the time, understood that there were 23 acres of stormwater that that would gather and flow uninhibited
Directly.
right through a pipe right out into Long Island Sound through that hole in the wall. And so as we developed that parking lot, we created a separator which picked up all the loose debris that traveled in the water, and then diverted the rest of the water into the 2 detention ponds right or left of the entrance to the hole in the wall. In essence, filtering all of the storm water that came from 23
The oils and the things that get mixed up with storm water.
Yeah. So that's a big thing, and that I think it's a big thing not only for the environment, but it's a big thing to show that government can do these things and act responsible and be a leader.
Right.
So that when they ask the rest of us, either residential developments or commercial enterprises, to participate, then we have an opportunity and an obligation to do so the best we can.
Another small success story, it's a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? I mean, there's all these different little pieces that have come together. And, downtown Niantic, just all over town, really. East Lyme has just come into this place now. We've matured into this town where people are talking about us. This past weekend, the Boston Globe magazine had an article on how great Niantic is, how the inns and the restaurants and the things to do. And I heard the New York, whether it was New York Times or the New Yorker, called us the Hamptons of Connecticut. There's a rumor floating. I haven't seen that article, but I've heard it from multiple sources. I think Candy Shapiro was a big proponent of that story. Anyway, listen, you spent a lot of time in East Lyme serving the public and serving well. Before I ask what your greatest accomplishment is and was to this point, what was your greatest moment in public service?
My greatest moment in public service, I think the aha moment, would have to be to become the Republican nominee for the United States Congress in the 2nd District. And you think of that not in terms of the importance of that seat, which is a tremendous seat and a tremendous opportunity, but to start the business that we had in 1983. I've told the story that we got ready to open that day, and I looked and there was no money in the cash register. And I called my wife. I said, "Hey, Don, how many tips did you make last night?" And she said, $41. So I said, bring them down. We got to have pennies,
money.
dimes, and nickels in the cash register. So that's, so to start from that and be the nominee for the running for Congress, I think makes this the greatest country in the world, and I think makes the opportunity that we had as a family, that I had as a business person, something that we must cherish and protect. And I think that was indicative of the whole level of public service. Certainly being elected to the state Senate, being elected to first selectman, being able to serve locally on zoning and Board of Finance and make a difference, those are all great things. But when I got elected first selectman in 2007, really, we took office the first week of December.
Right.
So it's really, by the time you get through the holidays, January of 2008, we noticed that the impending, what was to be known as the Great Recession, was on the horizon.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to some of our guys on the Republican side and said, listen, we got to go talk to the other team and elicit some help if we can. And they all said, no, you don't want to do that. That's not good. And we had just come off a very difficult budgets process before I was elected. There were 3 failed budget referendums. The budget failed 3 times at referendum, then a contentious town meeting that put it in. So there was a lot of acrimony amongst the parties. And so I went and talked to the Democratic Town Committee and told them, listen, I think you're 40 committed, passionate people that have the best interests of the town, and what do we really disagree on? At the end of the day, we want safe streets, good schools. We want our community plan for the future. We, and to be safe. So I need your help. This job that's coming up is bigger than just one party. And out of that, we were able to, I think, simmer down the political unrest that was in East Lyme. We were able to get a number of terrific volunteers. Specifically, I'll mention, among many, Paul McDonough, who was the assistant banking commissioner or treasurer for the state of Connecticut, and said, listen, I can help with the pension committee. So bringing those folks together.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination. That opportunity of preserving the American dream and working to understand that it's not just one party or the other.
Yeah, no doubt.
But it's a work in progress.
No doubt. And, we're in the preliminary stages of a campaign season, but, that could be your greatest legacy, is the bringing people together. Because it's certainly, when I started getting much involved in town government, that has been the flavor. It has been the motto of people just, it doesn't matter, put the R's and D's away. We all want the same thing. We want to keep East Lyme as great as it is and even make it better. So, and you can't do that with, I say this to a state senator who spends a lot of time in Hartford now, but town politics, I've always said, that's where democracy is really in action, because you end up voting the best people in who are passionate about doing the right thing, and then putting the parties aside. It's the old Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan way of doing business.
It's direct accountability at the first selectman level. At the, you walk into Stop and Shop, or somebody can walk right into Town Hall, into your office, and say, "Hey, I got this huge pothole in front of my driveway. What are you going to do about it?"
And by 4 o'clock that afternoon, it's fixed.
And that, as you work your way up or down the ladder, however you look at state government and federal government these days, that becomes more of a distance between the constituents that you serve and the problems that you create. But the process is not different. And I noticed, as I just completed my first session as a state senator, that there are some wonderful people up there. There are some great people serving. They have the best interest, truly, I think, for the state of Connecticut. Some people, I think, don't understand the effects of business and the effects of taxation. I think a lot of people that don't understand what happens on Main Street, certainly. I have the unique perspective of running a municipality and a small business during the Great Recession. So that's a good skill set to come up and talk about. But the process needs to be fixed up there, and it needs to be fixed in the very same way we fixed it here in East Lyme, just by reaching out to both sides. Because by being inclusive instead of exclusive, we're going to get a better product. And so that's what my focus is going to be moving forward, is to try to continue to bring people together and to try to do so in a way that benefits the people in the state of Connecticut.
Awesome. Good segue into your new job. You're coming from small town America. You were a great leader and continue to be, but it's a different leadership, isn't it? You were a chief elected officer. You were the CEO of the town, an executive going to a legislator, if you will, working with others to being one vote of many. Tell me the differences. What's your biggest discovery? The difference between what you thought it was going to be and the reality of what it is.
Well, the big thing is that you read about all of the acrimony that occurs up there, and it's really not. Everybody gets along very well. Everybody's very respectful of each other. So, I was most surprised by that people get along and they speak. Everybody votes one way down the middle. But, the big difference between being an executive where you make the decision and where you're part of a team or a group who, the majority vote wins, is a big difference. But again, people skills and talking to people, coming together, raising and finding consensus. I mean, that's what it's all about up there. I serve on 3 committees. I'm on public safety, which I chose because of a lot of the work we did as first selectman. You're the administrative chief of police, plus you oversee all the building codes and zoning codes, so all of that falls under public safety. On appropriations, which is the expenditure side of the budget, and we had 7 balanced budgets with surpluses here in East Lyme, so I hope to be able to have an opportunity to help in that regard up there in the state. And then energy and technology, which has been the most difficult of all the committee processes to learn.
Why?
Just because of the enormity of the task. Energy. We talked a little bit here about the new folks that took over MetroCast. It's such a huge and changing issue. We want renewables involved. We want we have generation and transmission. How do we get power from one to the other? How do How do we manage pricing so that people can afford it? If you're retired on a fixed income, or if you're a business or a parent of young folks. So, it's very complicated, and there's a lot of moving parts. So I spent most of my time after session was over trying to learn more about energy. In fact, I'm hoping to hold some hearings in the next few months before we go back into session in February to try to bring all of the players in, because what happens is up there, when you put a bill together, the public has a right to comment, but they get 3 minutes. And there's not much you can do in 3 minutes. So what I'm hoping to do in energy is to bring all the generators in there, and have them have an in-depth conversation for an hour about what it is they see their future as a business or in an industry or as a utility. How do we then bring the transmission people, the pipeline people in? How do we best deal with that? Bring Comcast and those folks in about how do we best handle.
So
all
that's
of
what
these
happens
things.
during the off season.
That's what I'm hoping will happen.
Because I was going to ask you what you do. What does a state senator do? The sessions are over in May or early June, right? And so what do you do from now till January? It's these hearings. It's all the homework.
Well, the special session ended June 29th. That was the last
is
day
that
of
late?
actually going to
Yeah,
Hartford.
that's
Now, we've
true.
had a number of committee meetings where I've gone up to Hartford, but most of the work is in district and then trying to catch up. A lot of folks take time off and have vacation, but I'm finding it's very busy, going to a lot of events, going to a lot of meetings, trying to meet all the players locally. And within the 8 towns that serve the 20th district, I have a portion of Old Saybrook, Old Lyme, East Lyme, Waterford, New London, a portion of Montville, Bosra, and Salem. So you try to have at least an understanding of all of the things that make those towns tick, so that you can be of service, you can be of help. And we're doing a lot of constituent work. My great aide, Kim, back in Hartford, she's there every day. She's my support aide for me, and so we kind of together help solve a lot of problems.
Right.
So that's what we're doing.
I know as your friend, you're busier than ever.
Yeah.
When I reach out to you, and I'm a pretty good keeper of all things Formica. I know what's going on. You are just everywhere. Again, you're representing 8 towns. There's all sorts of things going on, and you're reaching out. I know you to be one who answers every phone call and jumps in the middle of the ring when there's an issue. And I thank you for that assistance. As first selectman, I've had to pick up the phone a few times and say, how do we move this along? And I appreciate that support.
Well, I think that's one good point of my experience, is that I know all the mayors and first selectmen in the 8 towns, whether you're Republican or Democrat. We work together for the most part at the Council of Government, so we understand the issues are the same, and they're not red or blue, and the issues need to be developed to move forward, and everybody connects. What happens in Old Lyme does have an effect on Saybrook and East Lyme. What happens in East Lyme and Waterford?
Sure it does. Yeah.
We've done a lot of things, and I'm sure you're continuing to do with Dan, a lot of partnerships that go forward that benefit both communities. And so I try to kind of keep all those balls in the air and to try to keep everybody talking to each other. I will be coming down and speaking to you and all of the other first selectmen and saying, okay, as we approach the new session, what are some of the needs? What are some of the things that happen in the budget that are particularly onerous to you? How do we modify that? What's the opportunity we have? And I'll be doing that with all of the mayors and first selectmen in all of the 8 towns. And, hopefully we'll be able to make a difference.
You're a fantastic leader. We really appreciate that support, Paul. Last question, your opinion, because you know East Lyme, Niantic so well. What's our greatest strength as a town?
Well, we were the first fan favorite town.
Yes, we were.
When that
You love
contest came, I do love that. That was good. The one bad part was they had me sing on the first one. I mean, and my apologies to everybody who had to hear that. But and the reason that we were the fan favorite town is because when faced with that challenge, everybody rose to it, and so the people of the town of East Lyme and Niantic, from residents to school people to businesses and industry, everybody came together and said, we can win this. We have pride in our community, and we want to show that pride, and we did that in any number of ways. And I think the reason that East Lyme and Niantic has been successful, the steep grants funded it, but we set the table for the town to develop. Government did not overreach, we just provided opportunity. And I think we need to do those two things at the state level. One, set a better table in terms of our budget impact, set a better table in terms of the legislation that we're doing, in terms of the energy that we're able to provide or have the opportunity to come into Connecticut, so that we're not, first in all of the things as a state we should be last in, and last in all of the things that we should be a leader in. And then again, to be prideful. I think people in the state of Connecticut need to walk around with their shoulders up. They're so tense with taxes.
Yeah.
And we need to kind of settle. Let's change the process. Let's get people happy again. Let's keep our young people here. Let's serve our elderly. Let's make sure our transportation and housing is the best, and set the table, set a better table. And that's what I think we need to work on.
You say the right things, Paul, because I know you believe the right thing. I know you believe this in your heart. I know it comes from deep inside. You mean it. You're genuine. And that's the kind of leader you've been. And again, a good friend as well. The night you were elected state senate, I went home and didn't sleep because I went, what have I done? Being your deputy for first selectman for 5 years, I know there was a good shot that I'd be moving along. And, I was able to sleep the next night after I realized that you'd be a phone call away. And you always have been. You've been kind enough to let me learn the job, make mistakes. When that happens, it happens. We grow from those. We learn from those. And I'm not afraid to say that. But you've always been there. So really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that, but more importantly, thank you for being the deputy first selectman for 5 years, being there and taking an active interest and role, and then being ready to step up to the plate when it was time, so that the transition was seamless. Many people don't know that when I did get elected the first week in November, you spent the next 60 days with me, each and every day at your business and family's peril, to understand and learn the job so that the transition was seamless. And that's what government is about. We go back to those guys that were farmers and merchants who crafted the first documents as our country started. And that's what they did. They came together, they set the table, then they went back to their lives.
That's right.
And that's what we need to get back to. So
That's right.
East Lyme is lucky to have your leadership. I look forward to a continued 2 more years for that leadership, and I think you're doing a great job. But there's many people on boards and commissions that help and get the credit, and they're unsung heroes. So
no doubt.
Thank you for having the opportunity to be on today.
Thank you, Paul. Our guest today has been Paul Formica, State Senate, 20th District, and former First Selectman and former host of this show. Amazing, right? Thank you, Paul, very much for your leadership and being here today. If you have any questions, call my office, 860-691-4110, or drop me an email at mnickerson@eltownhall.com. This has been Issues and Answers. Thanks for tuning in this week. We'll see you again next time.